I sensed something was off the moment Cheryl from HR tapped on my door and murmured, "Hey, you forgot to initial the new NDA." I hadn't. I never forget anything. That's the reason this whole company ran like a tuned engine instead of a burning scooter in a sandbox. Still, I signed it, passed it back, and returned to turning legal jargon into code triggers for the $300 million Macrovia merger. The one they hyped like the second coming at every town hall, yet no one actually grasped. 12 years. That's how long I'd worked at Core Links. Not loudly, not glamorously. I wasn't part of the ping-pong clique or the manifesto-writing culture warriors on our internal wiki. I was the one who made sure the merger scripts cleared SEC checks, who built the invisible bridge between Macrovia's rusted legacy systems and our monstrous, patched-together backend that had survived 5 CTOs. You know, the dull stuff, the crucial stuff, the things no one noticed until it collapsed, and then I'd crawl in at 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve to patch it back up. That morning, 3 monitors glowed on my desk. 2 cold coffees waited for attention, and a post-it screamed, "Ask Legal about Clause 9, circled 3 times in angry red. Behind me, the office buzzed with its usual startup bravado, project managers parading like they owned time, developers arguing over whether JSON had feelings, and one intern looping the same 30 seconds of a Kendrick track until I almost stapled his AirPods to the table. And in the middle of that chaos, I sat in my corner, quietly finishing compliance checks for Macrovia. My name, Amanda R. Delaney, stared back at me from federal documents. Third-party signatory, neutral witness, clearance liaison. I was the bridge. No one else in the company held that clearance. No one else even wanted it. The certification itself was 6 months of bureaucracy and a psych exam. It was like earning the right to whisper in the Z's ear. They handed me that authority, then forgot they had. I didn't mind. I liked being unseen. There's power in that. You get to build silently while the noisy ones drown in their own slogans. I wasn't chasing glory. I just wanted my systems clean, my notes precise, and my coffee undisturbed. Oh, and if you're still watching and haven't subscribed, what are you even doing? Tap that little button and hit like. 90% of you are ghosts. I see the numbers. Go on. It means the world to our small team sweating behind the curtain to make these stories worth your time. Okay, rant over. Anyway, the only ones who ever really noticed me were the people who understood how fragile the whole setup was. Terry from legal, Joanna in Macrovia's compliance office, my old boss before he bailed to raise alpacas or whatever burnout fantasy he settled on. Everyone else, I was just Amanda from integration. Quiet, middle-aged, overdressed, overcaffeinated, undervalued. Then Tate showed up, but we'll get there. That day I logged into the clearance portal to submit my final approval. The Macrovia deal was set to close in 72 hours. My sign-off was the final step. Everything aligned. Months of effort, beacon protocols, audit triggers, third-party confirmations, cross-BER data validation. Ready. Except I stopped. Something didn't sit right. I couldn't name it yet. Not exactly, but I opened my personal folder marked contingency and rechecked the clause I'd flagged months earlier, just in case. Because here's what no one at Core Links ever got. I didn't build systems for them. I built them despite them. Because I knew one day they'd trip over their own arrogance and try to toss someone like me under the bus. And I wasn't going under. Not without a fuse lit and the exit locked behind me. They say when a company plans to quietly screw you, it happens on a Wednesday morning with free bagels. That's exactly how it began. The email hit at 9:13 a.m. All hands, mandatory 10 sharp, exact team updates. Don't miss it. That's HR code for someone new's in charge and heads will roll. Enter Mallory, the new chief operating officer. Mid-40s, all jawline and caffeine, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. He had that startup cult charisma, the kind of man who thinks synergy counts as a skill and calls spreadsheets weapons of mass disruption. He smiled too wide, talked too fast, called himself a fixer. I knew right then that to him we were already broken. He spoke for 42 straight minutes, tossing out words like agility, modernization, and legacy tech rot. The crowd applauded like he'd descended from a Wi-Fi-blessed Mount Sinai. I just sipped my burnt coffee and opened my terminal, fixing a failing data bridge no one else even knew was collapsing. 3 hours later, Cheryl knocked again. This time she wasn't holding paperwork. She brought two people from HR, one gripping a clipboard, the other looking like he'd been taxidermied. "Amanda, can we speak in private?" Translation: "Brace yourself." They led me into a side office like I'd been exposed to something contagious. No eye contact, no small talk, just a manila envelope slid across the table like a threat disguised as procedure. Tate didn't even bother to appear. The letter inside was a buzzword salad about structural shifts and evolving priorities. "Your position no longer aligns with the company's strategic direction." I was only halfway through when Clipboard Woman added, "We'll need your badge and laptop by 3. Her partner chimed in, "Security's already informed." I stood, turned toward the door, and caught something flicker in my periphery. On the reception desk, among the dead plants and spare keycards, was a printout of my face. In red marker, someone had written, "Do not allow re-entry." Below it, not employee, not Amanda, just threat. It felt like getting punched in the ribs by a stranger. I'd trained their last 3 CTOs. I'd kept their biggest deal alive with duct tape and espresso. I'd skipped funerals, birthdays, anniversaries to babysit their collapsing servers. And now they treated me like a liability in heels. I didn't cry. That would have been a gift. I inhaled, went back to my desk and started packing into a cardboard box, sitcom style. But this wasn't fiction. My hands were cold. My pulse was loud. Around me people stared at screens, pretending I didn't exist. My assistant Kyle mouthed, "I'm so sorry," from across the floor. I gave him a nod, half a smile, then did 2 things. First, I handed him my badge. No scene, no speech, no, "You'll regret this," just the quiet drop of a lanyard on polished laminate. Second, I walked outside, sat in my car, unlocked my phone and opened my secure Vault app. Inside, the encrypted key store. I deleted one entry, not a password, not a document, a private key bound to my personal clearance certificate, the one every Macrovia integration handshake required. Without it, the system couldn't validate third-party identity. Without it, the merger couldn't close. Without me, they were clutching a live grenade with no pin. I didn't grin. I didn't sigh. I just drove, hands steady, eyes ahead, because they thought they were moving forward. In truth, they'd just burned the only bridge that held. When I got home, I didn't even take off my coat. I stood in the doorway staring at my keys, half expecting them to vanish. The house was too quiet. No Slack pings, no emails, no "Hey Amanda," quick thing that always meant hours of unpaid labour. Just the ticking clock and the hum of the fridge. The box from the office sat on the table like a corpse. A mug reading, "I void warranties." A half-used notebook filled with VPN notes. A tin of mints for caffeine crashes. It all looked alien now, like a museum exhibit labelled "Burnout." I went to the hallway closet. Past the coats, behind the broken printer I kept promising to fix, sat a fireproof lockbox. I dragged it out, flipped the clasps, and sorted through folders labelled in my precise handwriting. Legal, clearance, protocols, red flags. Then I pulled the one marked contingency. I'd prepared it 2 years ago, not from paranoia, but awareness. You don't sit through merger calls for a year, listening to execs lie about redundancy management, and not prepare for the day they pretend you're optional. The folder was thick, too thick for someone they called legacy. I flipped past org charts, architecture diagrams, SEC notes, until I found what I needed, the original Macrovia protocol checklist. My name printed on every page, certified third-party liaison, clearance authority, neutral witness. I turned to the last 2 pages. Clause 9C, termination of the named liaison without formal substitution and recertification voids compliance and suspends the legal standing of the acquisition protocol. Translation, fire me without a replacement and the 300 million merger becomes a legal paperweight. No Amanda, no deal. I sat down, the paper's edge digging into my palm like it knew its worth. I'd never mentioned that clause. No one ever asked. Most of them hadn't even read the merger documents. They just handed me coffee and assumed I'd keep the train running while they took selfies on the tracks for LinkedIn. Not anymore. I wasn't grieving. That part of me froze in the HR room the moment I saw my photo labelled threat. This wasn't sadness. This was precision. They hadn't just fired me. They detonated their own timeline. And the cruelest part? They had no idea yet. They were probably in a glass conference room right now, high-fiving over streamlined efficiency, printing a new org chart with Tate's smug face on top. I flipped the protocol to the final signature line. My name was supposed to fill that final line. The ink was never going to touch it now. That checklist wasn't a formality. It was a legal linchpin. It connected to compliance registries, privacy acknowledgements, international banking clearances, every minefield the lawyers swore was safe, as long as I stayed on board. Well, not anymore. I leaned back, the paper resting on my knees, and breathed out through my nose. This wasn't vengeance. It wasn't sabotage. It was simple cause and effect. Remove the keystone. The arch crumbles. Basic mechanics. I pulled my old laptop from the closet, powered it up, and opened the encrypted drive I hadn't accessed in 6 months. Inside were backup logs, registry keys, liaison handshake protocols, everything they'd now have to rebuild from scratch with some guy named Dustin from IT who still needed help finding the company VPN. I checked the logs, confirmed the deletion I'd made from my phone earlier had propagated to the federal handshake server. Time-stamped, locked, irrevocable. They didn't know it yet, but they would soon. I took a sip of cold coffee from the office mug. By tomorrow, Macrovia would notice something missing, and the shouting would begin. The call took less than 4 minutes. I didn't rehearse it. I didn't pace or take notes like I used to before big meetings. I just sat at the dining table, the merger folder beside a half-eaten bowl of cereal, and dialed the number I'd memorized years ago. Macrovia Compliance. This is Greg Taylor. His voice was almost cheerful. Too cheerful for a man standing over a $300 million fault line. "Hi, Greg," I said evenly. "This is Amanda Delaney." A pause. Papers shuffled. A mouse clicked. "Oh, hey, Amanda. I was just reviewing your final checklist. We were expecting your last sign-off this week. Are you calling to confirm it went through?" I leaned back, watching sunlight crawl across the carpet. "Not exactly. Just checking on something in the workflow. Wanted to see if there've been any updates on your end before I move forward." Another pause. Longer this time. "Wait, you haven't submitted it?" "No." "Okay, but why?" His tone dropped, the false smile collapsing. "They terminated me yesterday." Silence, the kind that eats the room. "I'm sorry. What?" "It's fine. Just figured you should know before proceeding. If you need formal notice, my attorney can send one." He sounded like he was flipping frantically through papers, searching for proof this was a misunderstanding, a bad line, anything but reality. "They fired you?" "I'm no longer employed at Core Links. Badge revoked. Access disabled. Officially out. But you're the named liaison. Your credentials are embedded in the process. Your ID's in the acquisition binder. The compliance chain. Can't be replaced," I finished. "Correct." I let him sit in that silence before adding, "I'll send the formal notice shortly. Wouldn't want confusion." Then I hung up. No drama, no flourish. Just a scalpel cut straight through their corporate spinal cord. After that, I called my lawyer. Daniel didn't even ask why until page 3 of the termination letter. By then, he was already drafting a concise statement for Macrovia's legal department. Open quote, "Amanda Delaney no longer represents Core Link Systems in any formal or advisory capacity effective immediately." The moment Macrovia received it, the brakes screamed. They halted all signatures, froze merger accounts, suspended escrow triggers, and locked the final transaction keys. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a system alert. Secure handshake attempt failed. Key mismatch. Yeah, that's going to keep happening, boys. Then I did something small and petty. I scrolled to my old assistant's number. Kyle, the sweet, jittery kid with too much coffee and too little sleep. I texted him. They might want to double-check Clause 9C. Just a thought. Hope you're holding up. No emojis, no sign-off. Just that. 3 minutes later, he replied, "What the hell is Clause 9C? Everyone's losing it. Did you hear something?" I didn't answer. Let him wonder. It wasn't cruelty, it was a lesson. The kind you only learn when the ice cracks under your feet and you realize the lifeboats are already gone. I stared out the window. The sun had dipped behind the neighbor's roof. Across the street, Christmas lights blinked lazily, still up in March. I felt weightless. Not triumphant, not smug. Just balanced. Like tectonic plates finally sliding into place. They hadn't just given me leverage. They'd wrapped it in a bow and delivered it to my doorstep. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need revenge. I was the repercussion. And now they'd find out what it costs to sever the foundation and pretend the house won't cave in. By Friday morning, storm clouds hung over Core Link HQ, and nobody had brought an umbrella. The merger signing was set for 10 a.m. A full executive parade of suits, smiles, and legal binders stacked like dominoes. Macrovia's team was supposed to sweep in, shake hands, flash their grins, and seal the deal everyone already considered done. But 10 came and went. No Macrovia, no delegation, no chief counsel, no signatures, just silence. At 10:12, Tate stood in the boardroom, one hand in his pocket, the other nervously clicking a Sharpie like it might conjure a miracle. "Well," he said, forcing a smirk, "you know how these legacy firms are. Slow, paper-heavy. We'll fix it internally." He repeated it like a prayer. "We'll fix it internally." Except the problem was internal. 3 floors down, someone had started whispering about Clause 9C. Apparently, Kyle couldn't help himself. Bless his nervous Gen Z heart. He mentioned it to a junior analyst who went digging through the company's dusty shared drives, found an old draft of the merger protocol I'd uploaded months ago, and sent a screenshot to someone in legal. By 11:37, it was on Slack. By noon, the panic had a pulse. The general counsel stormed out, shouting for the original signatory logs. HR was in chaos. Compliance froze 3 invoices. Legal started asking who'd approved my termination. The merger lead tried calling Macrovia and got stonewalled with a polite but fatal line. "We are currently reviewing internal documentation irregularities. Please stand by." That's corporate for you, broke it. And we're not cleaning it up. At 10:04 p.m. my phone rang. Unknown number, decline. Then again, Core Link, CFO, decline. Third time, voicemail. I let it go through. He sounded like a man pretending not to drown. "Amanda, hi. Look, I know this isn't ideal, but we hit a small snag with the signing today, and I was wondering if we could connect briefly, just to clarify a few compliance details. Nothing major, dotting I's, crossing T's. Call me," close quote. I replayed the message twice before erasing it. They still thought it was just a glitch. They had no clue. This wasn't a glitch. It was total system failure. I reopened my laptop and checked the Federal Liaison database again. My name was still there. No replacement filed, no recertification requested, no alternate credentials in place. Without that authorization key, Macrovia's automated sign-off protocol couldn't clear the compliance barrier. No handshake, no merger, no exceptions. The more chaos built up, the steadier I felt. It was like watching a blaze you didn't ignite, but you had quietly removed the batteries from the alarm. A calm sort of control. No noise, no recognition, just fact. I got a text from Kyle. They're losing it. Legal blames IT. IT blames legal. Tate says it's a minor credentialing issue. Unreal. Then another message. "Did you do this?" I answered with one emoji. Let them make of it what they wanted. I toasted a sandwich, half-watched Judge Judy reruns, responded to some emails from my side project, the one I'd been nurturing quietly for 6 months, just in case. At 4 p.m, a company-wide calendar alert appeared. Emergency all hands. 4:30 p.m, conference room alpha. Subject line, realignment and roadmap discussion. Translation, panic control. That room was about to overflow with buzzwords, excuses, and cold sweat. I wasn't invited anymore, but I was watching. Calm, detached, letting the ripples spread. At 9:06 a.m. on Monday, the email arrived. The subject line sounded like frost. Re-pending merger, immediate compliance review required. The content was even colder. To whom it may concern, due to the unscheduled termination of the listed third-party liaison without replacement, Macrovia Group is halting all executional aspects of the acquisition. Compliance terms under sections 4.7 and 9C remain unresolved until correction. Transaction status suspended indefinitely. 4 lines. No room for argument, no spin. The kind of memo that makes CFOs drop their cups and HR start gagging into their recycling. I was sitting in my kitchen, wet pants on, pouring almond milk into cereal, watching the fallout unfold live. LinkedIn chatter started first, then finance blogs. Then someone from Macrovia posted, "Always verify your bridges before you burn them." Couldn't have phrased it better myself. Daniel, my lawyer, sent the final paperwork 30 minutes later. Notarized, signed in blue ink, priority delivery, digital confirmation attached. Short and surgical. Miss Amanda Delaney no longer holds any professional, contractual or advisory responsibilities toward Core Link systems, retroactive to her termination date. All compliance duties related to the Macrovia transaction are void. He even included a neat clause about proprietary data and vendor independence. I hadn't asked him to, but Daniel's sharp. He saw what was coming. When that document hit Macrovia's compliance inbox, the door locked. Legally, structurally, completely. They couldn't just slot in a new name and keep going. Deals like that aren't plug-and-play files. They're hand-built parachutes, and I'd been the one weaving the cords. Pull me out, and they drop. No drag, no safety. Later that afternoon, I opened a new browser tab and registered Quiet Seal LLC. 11 minutes flat. Registered agent. Bank setup pending. Just like that, Amanda Delaney stopped being an employee and became an entity, a vendor, a firewall, a name on a brass plate. The phone stayed silent. No CFO calls, no messages from Kyle. But I knew the noise behind closed doors. The boardroom tremors carried across the city. The whispers had started. Did Amanda hold side equity in the Macrovia deal? Did she build the original data bridge? Was she always a vendor in disguise? No, I wasn't. But it was easier for them to believe that than admit I was just the ignored employee who turned out to be the keystone holding their whole cathedral together. Funny how fast people rewrite history when the present catches fire. That evening, I got a text from an unknown number. 2 words, well played. No name, no signature. Maybe someone from legal, maybe Macrovia's COO, maybe another ghost in the wings. I didn't reply. I wasn't playing anymore. This was structure. Clean geometry, deliberate collapse, an old tower dismantled, not with explosions, but precision. 1 screw removed, 1 keystone revoked, 1 signature never made. The betrayal no longer hurt. That part was finished. What remained was clarity. Sharp, steady, absolute. Somewhere downtown, Tate was probably sweating through his collar, trapped in glass walls while someone pointed to Clause 9. Clause 9C glowed on the projector screen like some cryptic threat. And me? I was drafting a tagline for my new LLC site, Quiet Seal LLC, compliance without compromise. It sounded sharp. Fitting, really. Someone needed to remember who built the bridge in the first place. It began as a whisper in the elevator, that tight-throated, wide-eyed kind executives pretend not to notice. By late morning, it had turned metastatic. A leaked red-lined memo from Macrovia's legal department was spreading through the building like a virus. Termination of Amanda Delaney renders acquisition non-compliant. The phrase ricocheted down every hallway like a live round. Directors sat upright mid-meeting. Phones rang endlessly. Lawyers barked over one another like cornered animals, while PR scrambled to script crisis statements before the story broke. It did. A finance blog dropped a blind item. Unnamed Ohio tech firm loses key compliance figure mid-merger. Deal in limbo, $300 million at stake. They didn't name Core Link, but no one had to. Inside, the atmosphere froze solid. The CFO called again, this time skipping politeness. His voice was high, thin, on the verge of snapping. Amanda, I swear, this is on you. You're holding us hostage. Do you even realize what you've done? This could sink us. You can't just walk away. I let the phone buzz on the table until it went silent, then voicemail. His tone had shifted, pleading now. Amanda, we're open to flexibility. Just please call me. Macrovia won't accept anyone else. They keep saying material personnel discrepancy, and legal's arguing you were never formally replaced. It's a technicality, right? We can fix this. Please. Click. I watched the audio file appear in my inbox and deleted it unread. It wasn't a technicality. It was the entire framework. They hadn't just pulled a cog. They'd torched the foundation and looked shocked when the roof came down. Macrovia stood firm, no shortcuts, no substitutes, no acting liaison. Their final note was 3 sentences long. We cannot accept interim authorization under Clause 9C. Acquisition terms void. Contract suspended. Tate tried spinning it in a meeting, said they'd rebuild trust, whatever that meant. Someone in legal laughed aloud. Finance looked ready to cry. Then they made their fatal move. They tried the old way. Charm, pressure, a personal visit. Late afternoon, a grey Lexus idled crooked across my driveway. A man in a blazer stepped out, clutching a manila envelope and a kind of fragile hope that already smelled like failure. He rang, waited, rang again. Inside, the lights were off. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, jazz murmuring low, scrolling through licensing terms for a new client inquiry that had landed in Quiet Seal's inbox earlier. He knocked. I didn't move. On the doorbell cam, I watched him pace, muttering, checking his phone, then wedged the envelope in the screen door before driving off. I let it lie there until the wind carried it into the yard. No need to open it. I already knew. Apologies, offers, veiled talk of reinstatement. They still thought it was about employment. They couldn't see I'd already built a new world from the ruins they left behind. This wasn't bitterness. It wasn't revenge. It was finality. Finality of being talked over in meetings while holding their system together. Finality of patching their mistakes in code. Finality of dragging their project up a mountain I'd never be invited to summit. So when they knocked, I didn't stir. I sipped my tea, watched dusk gather, and let the storm beat against a door that would never open again. By Tuesday, panic had matured into full-blown cardiac arrest. The board convened an emergency session. No slides, no catered breakfast, just flushed faces and clashing egos. Voices piled on top of each other until no one could tell where the shouting ended and the collapse began. Tate sat at the head, drenched in sweat, his trademark smirk gone. His confident startup patter had shriveled into a rasp. "I think we might have, misjudged Amanda's operational scope," he began, but didn't finish before the lead investor, a wiry man named Carl with eyes like blades and a courtroom growl, slammed his folder shut. "Who?" Carl asked quietly. "Authorized termination without transition planning?" Silence detonated. The general counsel stared at the floor. The CFO drained of colour. A board member coughed into her sleeve like it might save her from contagion. Tate tried again. "It was a collective decision based on performance metrics." Carl raised a hand. "No buzzwords, no excuses. A $300 million deal is dead. Macrovia won't move an inch without Amanda's credentials. You didn't fire a developer. You severed a compliance artery." So I asked again, "Who signed off?" The fudge spoke louder than words. Someone in PR had leaked a security still from my last day. My face taped the front desk in red marker. Underneath, "Do not let her back," scrawled like I was radioactive. It hit LinkedIn with the caption, "How you treat your veterans tells everyone everything they need to know." It went viral. Ex-employees commented. Clients quietly screenshot it. Even Macrovia's CCO liked it, sending their legal team into visible panic. Someone printed it and brought it into the boardroom. No one wanted to look, but no one dared toss it. That afternoon, Tate sent an official offer through HR. Double salary, a title bump, expanded authority. The email landed in my lawyer's inbox like a holiday Hail Mary. Daniel forwarded it to me with a single question. "Ghost them," or reply. I told him to respond. His reply was exquisite. "Miss Delaney acknowledges your revised offer. However, she no longer holds employee status at Core Link Systems. Should your organization wish to engage her expertise, Quiet Seal LLC is available for limited licensing of relevant services. Market rates apply. Retainer required. Engage subject to availability." Short. Surgical. No drama. No badge. No politics. No tape. That evening, Core Link internal chats erupted. The offer had leaked, likely from HR frustration. The reply circulated faster than any memo Tate ever sent, and the narrative flipped. The same colleagues who barely looked at me now whispered my name like a legend. Not that compliance officer, but the woman who brought the merger to its knees without raising her voice. Even Kyle texted again. "You actually asked for double and walked away?" I didn't reply. He wasn't wrong. I hadn't burned the bridge. I'd just turned it into a toll road. Now they could pay up or watch from the shore as it collapsed. It ended quietly. Not a press release, but a whimper. Macrovia officially pulled out on Thursday morning. The announcement hit the wire at 7:13 a.m. Due to unresolved compliance gaps and personnel discrepancies, Macrovia Group has terminated its acquisition proceedings with Core Link Systems. We wish all parties well. 4 sentences. Cold. Surgical. A bullet in a silk envelope. By 9 a.m., Core Link stock was free-falling. $300 million evaporated without applause. By noon, the investor call transcript leaked. Brutal. Lead investors screamed, GC deflected. Tate apparently left mid-call, mic still hot. I watched the CFO resign via webcast, pale, hollow, reciting the usual spiel about new opportunities and family time like anyone believed he wasn't fleeing the smoking ruins. I never returned to the office. Not when they sent another courier, not when the interim CTO asked for coffee, but I did answer the door Friday morning. A man handed me a square velvet box. No sender label, just a gold seal I recognized from Macrovia's executive suite. Inside, nestled in silk, was a note. Next time they'll know who built the bridge. RM, CEO, Macrovia Group. No pitch, no ask, just acknowledgement, the kind that lands heavy without confetti. I placed it on my shelf. between the merger binders and Quiet Seal's operating agreement. Then I returned to my desk. No burnt coffee smell, no recycled ambition, just pine and control. 3 screens glowed, none connected to Slack, none attached to anyone who could call me legacy. Quiet Seal LLC had signed a third client, Core Links. They didn't want to, but they needed to. They licensed one of my old integrations, once deemed obsolete, now critical. I controlled the access keys. I charged 4 times the original rate. No complaints. This time, they understood. Sunlight spilled across the blinds. I held a warm cup of coffee, watching the edge of the velvet box catch the light. A quiet morning. No meetings. No fire drills. Just clarity. My phone buzzed. New email. Subject, respectfully requesting your terms. I smiled, sipped slowly, let it rest on my tongue before swallowing. Let the world run. I wasn't chasing anymore. I was the terms.